Hey there. Welcome to Night Rain Stories. I'm glad you found your way here tonight. Before you drift too far into the dark, take a moment to settle in. Maybe turn off the lights, grab something warm to drink, and let the sound of rain do the rest. If you enjoy slow stories, quiet nights, and the kind of calm that hides a little fear underneath, then you're in the right place. You don't have to like or subscribe right away. Just listen first. Feel the rhythm of the words, and if something in the dark whispers to you, maybe that's your sign to stay. Tell me where you're listening from, and what the night feels like where you are. It helps me imagine the world through your silence. Now, let's dim the lights, let the rain fall, and begin our night together. Story 1, The Warehouse on the Edge of Town. You know how sometimes people tell you strange stories, things they've seen or heard, and you just smile and think, yeah, right, you must have imagined that. But this one is a little different. His name was Ethan, just a regular guy. Worked the night shift at a logistics warehouse on the outskirts of City H. His shift started at 10 p.m. and ran until dawn. He was used to being alone there. Until one night, things changed. He said the air felt strange that evening. No wind, no noise, yet the cardboard boxes on the upper racks were trembling, almost breathing. He thought maybe it was rats or a truck passing outside. But when he shut off the forklift to listen closely, there was nothing, just silence. A kind of silence that presses into your ears until it hurts. It was just past 1. Ethan was sitting on a crate writing his report when he heard it. Slow, careful footsteps coming from behind him. "Hello?" he called out. No answer. The steps stopped, then he heard breathing. Not heavy, but close, like someone was standing right behind him. One step away. He spun around fast, no one was there. But the smell hit him, wet soil and metal like blood after rain. And on the floor near his boots, a muddy footprint, as if someone had been standing there watching, and vanished. He ran outside, lit a cigarette, tried to calm himself down, but it only got worse. Because when he looked back toward the warehouse, someone was standing inside, right where he'd been sitting. Tall shoulders slumped, head tilted slightly, as if looking straight at him through the window. Ethan didn't go back in that night. He waited outside until sunrise. After that, he never worked alone again. A few weeks later, his friend Mark took the night shift. Around 3 a.m., Mark called Ethan, crying. He said he saw the same figure, but this time, not just a shadow. He described her, a woman, long hair, pale skin like cold flesh, eyes empty. And when she opened her mouth, no sound came out, just a stream of blood. The next morning, they both went to the supervisor, but the man just smiled. "Oh, so you've seen her too?" he said. "Almost every new worker does, usually in their first month." When Ethan asked why, the supervisor just shrugged and said, "If I told you the reason, you'd never come back here again." Ethan quit not long after. The warehouse has been closed since 2021, but sometimes when he drives past it late at night, the lights are still on inside, flickering just like before. And every now and then, he swears he sees something in the second-floor window. A figure, head slightly tilted, watching the road. Sometimes it even smiles. Maybe it's just imagination, or maybe something never really left that place. But if you ever pass by the old warehouse outside City H and feel like someone's watching you from the glass, just don't wave back. Story 2, The Night Shift at Hospital CA. You know that kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful. The kind that makes your skin crawl, like the walls themselves are listening. That's what Lena felt on her first night shift at Hospital CA. The building was old, long corridors smelling of medicine and damp paint. The fluorescent lights flickered like they were struggling to stay alive. Some of the hallways hadn't been used for years. Her shift started at 10 p.m., the hour when the whole hospital seemed to hold its breath. That night, she was assigned to the 3rd floor, the surgical wing. Most rooms were empty, just a few recovering patients and one operating room at the end of the corridor. Her supervisor told her quietly, "Don't go in there. That room's been closed for a long time." Lena didn't ask why, she just nodded and kept working. Around 1:30 a.m., the silence was so heavy she could hear her own heartbeat. She was writing her report when she heard it, a slow talk, coming from down the hallway. At first, she thought it was a patient walking around. She grabbed her flashlight and walked toward the sound. But the moment she reached the end of the corridor, it stopped. "Hello?" She called out, no answer. The corridor was dark, lit only by the dim red glow of an emergency light above. At the very end stood a heavy steel door with a faded sign, Operating Room 03, closed. The door was locked, but beneath it, a thin line of white light flickered softly, like an operating lamp was still on inside. Lena knelt down and looked through the gap. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Hello? Is someone in there?" Silence. Then something moved inside the room. Not a shadow, but a figure, standing perfectly still beside the operating table. Lena stepped back. She reached for the intercom, but the signal was dead. Then behind her, the footsteps started again. Slow talk, this time closer. She ran to the nurse station, locked the door, and sat on the floor, shaking. A second later, every light in the room went out. Only the intercom crackled to life above her head. Static hissed, then a faint woman's voice whispered, "Help me, the operation isn't finished." The next morning, they found Lena unconscious on the floor. Every light on the third floor had burned out, except one. The light inside Operating Room 03 was still on. When the door was opened, the table inside was cold, but wet. And on its surface, bloody handprints, fresh ones. That night, Lena requested a transfer. And since then, every new nurse assigned to Hospital CA is told the same thing. If you ever hear footsteps around 2 a.m., don't look toward the operating room. Story 3. The night shift at the textile factory. You know how some places look completely normal during the day, but feel like a different world when the sun goes down? That's exactly how it is at this textile factory on the outskirts of City El Rio. 27 had just started working there as a night security guard. His job was simple: make rounds every 2 hours, check the doors, log the time, and report anything unusual. But from the very beginning, something about that place didn't sit right with him. The building was old, the walls damp, and several rooms still had those massive sewing machines left unused since 2019. One of the older workers told him the factory once had a small fire in the yarn storage area. It was repaired, but after that, no one wanted the night shift anymore, until Rio came along. The first few nights were quiet, just the sound of crickets and the hum of an old cooling fan. But by the fourth night, he started to feel he wasn't alone. It was around 1:30 a.m. He was walking through the back hallway, the one near the storage area for fabric rolls. The light there was weak, one flickering fluorescent tube that buzzed every few seconds. Rio pointed his flashlight down the corridor and saw a long shadow at the far end. It looked like someone standing still. He blinked. The shadow was gone. Then from the direction of the old machine room came a faint scraping sound, metal dragging slowly across the floor. Rio's skin pricked, but he kept walking. That was his job. The machine room was dark and heavy with the smell of rust and burnt cloth. And there, between two of the old sewing machines, he saw someone standing. A woman, long hair, wearing a gray uniform, soaked like she'd just walked in from the rain. Rio spoke softly. "Ma'am, you can't be here this late," but she didn't answer. She just tilted her head ever so slightly, like she was listening. Rio took a step forward. The air grew colder, unnaturally cold, like a freezer door left open. He raised his flashlight to see her face, and right then, the light died. Darkness, complete silence. And in that silence, he heard it, the faint tearing sound of fabric right behind his ear. He turned, breathing hard, fumbling to turn the flashlight back on. When the beam finally came to life, the woman was gone. But on the dusty floor just beside his boots was a wet footprint, small, bare, and facing away from him. It led straight to the exit. Rio rushed back to his post. His hands were shaking as he turned on the radio. Just static. Then from the static came a voice, a woman's voice, soft, monotone. "The stitching isn't finished." He killed the radio, stepped outside, and didn't go back in until sunrise. After that night, he never set foot in that old machine room again. A week later, a new guard took over Rio's route. First night, everything was fine. Second night, Rio got a call around 3 a.m. The new guy was crying. He said he saw red threads hanging from the ceiling in the machine room, and at the end of one of them, something was swaying. When he shined his light, he realized, and it was a gray uniform, hung through the chest with a large sewing needle. The next day, management decided to close the factory at night. Now it only opens until 6 p.m., but sometimes people passing by still see one light glowing inside the old machine room. And if you listen closely, you might hear the faint sound of a sewing machine, still running. Maybe it's just another ghost story told among night workers. Or maybe someone in that factory still hasn't finished her work. If you ever pass by there after midnight and hear the sound of stitching from the dark, and whatever you do, don't look toward the window. Story 4. The night janitor at the old school. You ever notice how schools have two different sides? During the day, they're full of noise, laughter, footsteps, voices echoing down the halls. But at night, everything changes. The same hallways feel colder, and your own footsteps sound like they belong to someone else. That's what a janitor named Reno found out when he started working at an old elementary school in the city of B. He'd been there for about 2 months, cleaning classrooms, sweeping the long corridors, and turning off the lights before going home. His shift ran from 9 p.m. until 2 a.m. Everything was fine until his 10th night. He was sweeping the second floor. The corridor there stretched forever, and at the very end was the music room. No one used it anymore. It had been locked for years. The light above was dim, flickering every few seconds like it couldn't decide whether to stay alive or die. As Reno swept closer to the end of the hall, he heard something. A piano key, then another. 3 soft notes, then silence. He froze. The sound had come from the locked music room. He stood there listening, waiting. Nothing. He took a few careful steps closer. Still locked, still dark inside. Then one more note, clear lonely, like someone pressing the key just once to see if he was listening. He backed away. Told himself it was the wind or maybe a rat running across the floorboards. But as he turned to leave, he saw something move. A shadow passing at the far end of the hallway. No footsteps, just a shape. He rushed downstairs and turned on every light in the main hall. But that only made things worse. On one of the classroom chalkboards, there was a fresh message written in white chalk. Don't clean the music room. Reno's hand started shaking. He tried wiping it off, but the chalk felt sticky, like it had just been written a second ago. He sat down by the window, trying to calm himself until his shift ended. But around 1 a.m., the sound of footsteps echoed from the second floor. Slow, steady, back and forth, like someone pacing the same corridor he'd just cleaned. He thought about going up, but deep down he knew he wasn't alone in that building anymore. The next day, he told the school's night guard what happened. The guard didn't look surprised. He just sighed and said, "Oh, the music room again? There used to be a piano teacher there. She died in that room back in 1998. Then he added quietly, "If you ever hear the piano playing again, don't go looking for it. Because if you see who's playing it, you'll hear her song every night after that, no matter where you are." Reno quit a week later, but people living near the school still say that every Friday night, if you walk past the old building, you can hear a piano playing from the second floor. 3 slow notes over and over again, exactly like the night Reno left. Maybe it's just an old story people like to repeat. Or maybe some teachers never stop teaching. So if you ever walk past that school at night and hear a faint piano playing upstairs, don't stop. Don't look up. Story 5, the night guard at the abandoned amusement park. Places that once held laughter sometimes keep the darkest memories, like that old amusement park on the outskirts of El City. It's been closed for years. Broken rides, peeling paint, and rusted fences that creak with every wind. Yet every night, someone swears they still hear the carousel music, even though the power's been cut off for a long time. His name was Gavin, a night guard assigned to watch over that forgotten park. He worked the late shift alone, patrolling rows of empty booths and silent rides. At first, it was just boring and cold, until the 3rd week and when things started to change. He said it began around 1 a.m. He was walking his usual route, flashlight in hand, checking the rides one by one. When he passed the old carousel, he heard something faint, a slow, broken tune, like an old music box trying to play again after years of silence. He froze, pointed his flashlight at the carousel. The wind stopped, and there, between two carved horses, stood a small figure in a dirty white dress, hair long, back turned, completely still. At first, Gavin thought it was just a mannequin left behind. But when he walked around the ride to look from another side, the figure was gone. Only the carousel kept spinning slowly, and on the dusty ground, 4 tiny footprints ending halfway through the air, as if someone had vanished mid-step. The next night was worse. Lights in the game area flickered on, even though the control room was locked. And whenever Gavin turned off his flashlight, he'd hear it, a faint laugh coming from the carousel seats. Not a happy laugh, but short and flat, like something recorded decades ago. One night, he decided to record it on his phone. He stood still, waited, and the laugh came again, soft, distant. But when he played the recording later, there was no laugh, no carousel music. Just one quiet voice at the very end, a little girl whispering, "Play with me again." Gavin dropped his phone and ran out of the park. He quit the next morning, said he didn't want to guard a place that still had guests. Now the park is sealed off, rusted chains on the gate, faded warning signs barely hanging on. But people nearby still talk. They say that sometimes on foggy nights you can hear the carousel music again, followed by a child's laugh that stops midair. Maybe it's just an echo from the past, or maybe someone there never stopped playing. So if you ever pass by that park late at night and you hear carousel music drifting through the fog, don't look toward it.